In this lesson, I want to show you how we can pass additional arguments to our event handler methods. Now, there's not really a perfect use case for this in our app right now, but occasionally we may want to pass additional data to our event handler methods, not just the event object that React generates. And the issue is that the function or the method that we provide to the onChange event only supports one parameter, and that parameter, of course, represents the event object that React will generate and pass in. So for example, right here, we have our onChange handler, and we tell React that whenever the user types a character, it should invoke this method right here, handle email change, and React will automatically pass in one argument, the event object, and that's why we've given this method one parameter for the event object. So the question is, how can we provide additional data to something like this method if we wanted to, given that the React paradigm doesn't really allow us to do this? Well, rather than passing a reference to a component instance method, what we can do for onChange is we can define a function that invokes our component method. And in that function, we can invoke our component instance method with whatever additional arguments we would like. So let me scroll down and show you how this is going to work. So right here, we have a reference to a method. Remember, what onChange fundamentally expects is either a function or a method. It needs some kind of recipe, some kind of procedure that it's going to run onChange, right? That's precisely why we can always pass in a plain arrow function inline if we want. React just needs to know what to do at this juncture when this event occurs, and React will automatically give us an event object whenever that function or method runs, right? So we began with this approach of defining an inline arrow function, and then we decided to delegate that responsibility to a component instance method instead, just so we could separate the render from the JavaScript logic. But now we're going to combine sort of the best of both worlds. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to define an inline arrow function, and as always, we're going to provide a parameter for the event object that React will generate. But all that this function will do is invoke my handle email change method, like so. And here is where I can pass in the exact same event object that I get from React, but also here is where I can provide whatever additional arguments I want, because now we're no longer inside just this function that needs to be defined for React's sake to just take one parameter. We're now defining handle email change to accept whatever we want. So I'm going to still pass it the React event object because I still need it to access the target property, but here I can pass in whatever additional arguments I want, right? So for example, I can pass in a string here of anything we want, right? It's very important to understand that we cannot define additional parameters right here, right? Because this is a function that needs to be defined to fit React's expectations. React needs a function that's going to take one parameter that's going to represent the event object. However, with that function that we provide to React, this one right here that satisfies that criteria, in the body of that function, we can do whatever we want, such as invoke a component instance method and pass that instance method whatever additional data we want. So we can have 2 arguments here, or 3 arguments, or 4 arguments, it doesn't matter. So now, transitioning to the handle email change method right here, now we're going to have that additional piece of data right here. And we're not limited to, of course, just 2 arguments. We can have 3, we can have 4. We can decide whether we want to pass in React's original event object in the first place. It doesn't really matter. The point is that flexibility exists while still catering to React's expectation of having a function that just accepts one parameter, the event object. So for example, here I can do something like console log my additional piece of data, save this, and you'll notice if I open up my browser console and type something into here like Z, there we go. We have the output of anything we want, which means we are correctly getting this parameter populated with the argument we provide right here. So the key takeaway here is that we can pass additional arguments to our event handler methods if we want. The way we do that is by defining an inline arrow function like so that accepts the React event object, and then invokes our own component instance method, which can follow whatever definition we want. It can have whatever parameters we want, however many of them we want, whatever we want the data to be. We can structure it like so and pass in that additional information. There's not really a use case for this exact paradigm or design pattern in our app right now, but in the real world, you might sometimes encounter that where you just need to pass that method some additional data for it to work with. All right, so what I'm going to do is return this back to its original implementation. So I'm just going to go back to referencing our handle email change method like so, uninvoked, right? Because now I want to tell React that this method is going to represent that core procedure that it needs to run and pass in the event object to, which means right here at the very top, I'm going to return this back to its original implementation. So get rid of this second parameter and get rid of this console log. But that just goes to show you how we can indeed pass in additional arguments to our instance methods and to our event handler methods. All right, that's all there is to cover in this lesson, so I will see you in the next one.